Poor single-dad delivery guy sacrificed his job to save a dying old man, unaware he's his CEO's father.
Sir, can you hear me?
A delivery driver. A dying stranger sprawled on cold concrete, and one impossible choice. A choice that would cost him everything he'd worked for. His job, his home, his daughter's future. What John Ambrose didn't know as he dropped to his knees on that freezing November morning was that the man gasping for air beneath his hands wasn't just anyone. But first, John had to survive the fall. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel.
The motorcycle engine roared as John Ambrose weaved through Cincinnati's downtown traffic, packages strapped precariously to the rack behind him. His phone, mounted on the handlebars, glowed angry red with notifications. Delivery 45 of 47, 4 minutes behind schedule. Warning, route efficiency below threshold. His hands gripped the handles tighter. 4 minutes. That was all it took to trigger a flag in the system. 3 flags meant a performance review. 3 reviews meant termination. He couldn't afford termination. The November wind bit through his thin jacket as he accelerated toward the next stop. 33 years old, and this was what his life had become. Racing against an algorithm that didn't care if he lived or died as long as packages arrived on time. The crumpled eviction notice in his pocket rustled with every movement. 3 days. That's what his landlord had given him yesterday. Tobacco-stained teeth flashing in a sneer that still made John's stomach turn. 3 days, Ambrose, or you and that kid are on the street. Eleanor, his daughter, 7 years old, with curly ginger hair that caught the light the same way her mother's had. She was the only reason John got out of bed every morning. The only reason he pushed through the exhaustion, the fear, the grief that never quite left. His radio crackled. "Unit 47, you're falling behind. Pick up the pace." "Copy that," John muttered, though his supervisor couldn't hear him. That's when he saw it. At first, it was just a dark shape on the sidewalk ahead. The pile of clothes, maybe. A homeless person sleeping. But as John got closer, something made his breath catch. The hand. Reaching. Grasping at nothing. John's eyes locked onto the figure. An elderly man, collapsed, his silver-gray hair stark against the concrete. His face was ashen, lips tinged blue. One hand clutched his chest, the other stretched out desperately, as if trying to grab on to life itself. People walked past. A woman in a business suit glanced down, her face registering brief concern before she looked away and hurried on, heels clicking against the pavement. A jogger swerved around him without breaking stride. A teenager with headphones didn't even notice. John's phone buzzed. Delivery 45, now 6 minutes behind. His hands trembled on the handlebars. Every second he delayed was another nail in his employment coffin. Eleanor's face flashed in his mind, her gap-toothed smile when he picked her up from school, the way she hugged him when he came home, even on nights when home meant their cramped apartment with sirens for lullabies. He was supposed to deliver to the office building across the street. He was supposed to ignore distractions. He was supposed to think about survival. But the old man's hand was still The motorcycle screeched to the curb, helmet off, engine still running. And then he was sprinting, his delivery scanner clattering to the ground. Sir, can you hear me?" John dropped to his knees, his hands instinctively going to the man's neck to check for a pulse. Weak. Erratic. The man's breathing was shallow, rapid, each inhale sounding like it might be his last. Heart attack. John had seen one before, years ago when Anna's father collapsed at Sunday dinner. The memory hit him like a punch. The same gray pallor, the same desperate gasps. His phone was already in his hand, fingers shaking as he dialed. 911, what's your emergency? I need an ambulance at the corner of 5th and Elm. Elderly man, approximately 75, possible cardiac arrest. He's conscious but unresponsive, breathing shallow, pulse weak. The dispatcher's voice was calm, methodical. Sir, is he on any medication? Does he have a medical alert bracelet? John's hands moved quickly, loosening the man's collar, checking his wrists. Nothing. No bracelet. I don't know his medical history. I saw him collapse. Help is on the way. Can you tell me if he's breathing normally? No. It's labored, like he can't get enough air. Elevate his legs if possible and keep him calm. Don't move him. Paramedics are 3 minutes out.
John pulled off his jacket, rolling it up to place under the man's legs. The November cold bit into his arms, but he barely felt it. His phone, still mounted on the motorcycle, was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Route abandonment detected. Return to facility immediately. Supervisor notification sent. Each notification was a death sentence. But John couldn't look away from the old man's face. His eyes had found John's now, clouded with pain, but desperately aware. "Stay with me," John murmured. "Help is coming. Just hold on. You're going to be okay." The man's lips moved, trying to form words, but nothing came out except a wheeze. "Don't try to talk. Save your strength. They'll be here soon." Somewhere in the back of John's mind, a voice was screaming. "What are you doing? You're throwing away everything. Eleanor needs you. The rent, the bills. You can't afford this." But louder than that voice was a memory. Anna's voice. Soft. Certain. "Promise me you'll never lose yourself, John. Promise me you'll stay the man I fell in love with. The one who stops for people who need help." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The ambulance screeched to a halt, and suddenly paramedics were swarming. Professional. Efficient. John stepped back, giving them room. "What happened?" one of them asked, as already checking vitals.
"I found him collapsed, possible cardiac arrest. He's been unresponsive for about 7, maybe 8 minutes now." "You call it in?" "Yes. I stayed with him, elevated his legs, loosened his collar." The paramedic glanced up, eyes sharp with approval. "You likely saved his life. Another few minutes, and we'd be having a very different conversation." They worked quickly. Oxygen mask, IV, loading him onto a stretcher. One of the younger paramedics approached John with the clipboard. "What's your name, sir?" "John. John Ambrose." "You family?" John shook his head. "No, I saw him and couldn't leave him there." The paramedic's expression softened. "That's rare these days. We need your information for the report." John rattled off his phone number and address, watching as they loaded Clint into the ambulance. The old man's eyes found his one more time, and something passed between them. Gratitude, recognition, a silent thank you. Then the doors slammed shut, and the ambulance disappeared into the city noise. John stood alone on the sidewalk, the cold finally registering. His jacket was gone, probably in the ambulance. His phone was still buzzing. He looked at the screen. Route abandonment detected. Return to facility immediately. Disciplinary action pending. His stomach dropped. He'd done it. Actually done it. Thrown away his job, Eleanor security, everything, for a stranger. The warehouse was exactly as cold as John expected. His supervisor, Dale Kruger, stood at the loading dock with his arms crossed and his face the color of a ripe tomato. Behind him, other drivers watched with a mixture of pity and relief that it wasn't them. "Ambrose," the word came out like a curse. "My office, now." John followed, his legs feeling like lead. The scanner and company phone felt heavy in his hands. Soon they wouldn't be his anymore. Dale's office was a cramped box with a desk, a filing cabinet, and a window that overlooked the parking lot. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the glass. "2 undelivered packages, Ambrose. 2. Do you have any idea how much this costs the company?" "Sir, I can explain." "I don't want to hear it." Dale's voice was loud enough to carry through the walls. "You abandoned company property in the middle of a route. That's grounds for immediate termination." "There was a man dying on the sidewalk. I called 911. I saved his life." "I don't care." Dale leaned forward, his breath smelling of coffee and contempt. "You had a job to do. Instead, you decided to play hero." "He would have died. People were walking past him like he was trash. I couldn't just leave him there." Should have called 911 and kept moving. Not my problem, not your problem. Your problem is delivering packages on time. I've been with this company for 4 years, John said, desperation creeping into his tone. Perfect safety record. I've never missed a deadline except for documented emergencies. I have a daughter. Should have thought about her before you threw away your job. Dale's smile was cruel. Or maybe you did think about her, and you just don't care enough. The words hit John like a slap. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Ambrose. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Turn in your scanner, your phone, and your access badge. Please, the word tasted like ash. Just let me finish the route. Dock my pay, write me up. I'll take any punishment. But don't fire me. I need this job. Dale's expression didn't change. You needed it. Past tense. Should have thought about that before you decided a stranger's life was worth more than your daughter's upkeep. John's hands shook as he placed the equipment on the desk. 4 years. 4 years of early mornings and late nights, of skipping meals to make deliveries on time, of pushing through exhaustion and grief and the constant weight of being one paycheck away from disaster. Gone. All of it. In 7 minutes. Get out, Ambrose, and don't bother using me as a reference. The walk home was a blur. John's mind kept circling back to one thought. How am I going to tell Eleanor? The apartment was quiet when he arrived home. Eleanor wouldn't be back from school for another hour. John sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills he couldn't pay, the eviction notice he couldn't fight, the job applications he filled out that never responded. He had a business management degree from Cincinnati State, graduated with honors. It had taken him 6 years of night school while working full-time, but he'd done it. Anna had been so proud. You're going to do amazing things, John Ambrose, she'd said, kissing his forehead the night he walked across that stage. That was 8 years ago, before the diagnosis, before Eleanor, before medical bills swallowed every penny and then some. Before Anna's death left him scrambling to survive with a 1-year-old and debt that stretched to the horizon. The degree sat in a drawer, useless. Nobody wanted to hire a guy with a 6-year gap in his resume, no matter how good his grades were. His phone buzzed, a text from Eleanor's school. Field trip next month, $35 per student. Please submit payment by Friday. $35. It might as well have been $3,000. John put his head in his hands and let the tears come. 2 days later, John was lying on the floor of the apartment helping Eleanor build a tower out of blocks when the pounding started. Not knocking, pounding. Eleanor's eyes went wide. Daddy? Stay here, sweetheart. John kissed her forehead and went to the door, already knowing who it was. His landlord stood in the hallway, arms crossed, that same cruel smile on his face. Time's up, Ambrose. Mr. Fletcher, please. I gave you 3 days. You're 2 days past due. I want you out by tomorrow morning, or I'm changing the locks and putting your stuff on the curb. I'm waiting to hear back from jobs. Just 1 more week. I'll get you the money. I've heard your excuses for 6 years. Every month it's something. Your wife died, your car broke down, you lost your job. I'm done being your charity case. I have a daughter. Then you should have thought about her before you screwed up. Fletcher's eyes were cold. Tomorrow morning, be gone, or I'll have the sheriff remove you. The door slammed. John stood there, frozen. Behind him, he heard Eleanor's small voice. Daddy, are we going to be okay? He turned at her. She was standing in the doorway of the living room, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her green eyes, Anna's eyes, wide with fear. John crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. We're going to be fine, sweetheart. I promise. It was a lie. But what else could he say? That night, after Eleanor fell asleep, John sat in the dark and accepted his fate. They'd be homeless by tomorrow. He'd have to call the shelter, see if they had room. Maybe his old coworker Mike would let them crash on his couch for a few days. He'd done the right thing. He knew that. But the right thing was about to cost Eleanor everything. His phone rang. Unknown number. Probably a debt collector. John almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Is this John Ambrose? A woman's voice. Professional. Warm. Yes. My name is Sarah Williams. I'm the CEO of Williams Logistics. John's stomach dropped. Williams Logistics, the company that just fired him. Why would the CEO be calling him? Yes, this is John. Mr. Ambrose, I'm calling because I believe you saved someone's life last Tuesday. An elderly man who collapsed on 5th and Elm? The paramedics said a delivery driver called it in and stayed with him until they arrived. John's confusion deepened. I did, but how do you know about that? Because the man you saved was my father, Clinton Williams. The name hit John like a freight train. Clinton Williams, founder of Williams Logistics. The old man with silver-gray hair gasping on the sidewalk was... The paramedics gave us your information, Sarah continued. My father's been asking about you ever since he woke up. He wanted me to find you, to thank you properly.
John's mind was reeling. He'd saved the founder of the company, the man who'd built the empire that employed thousands, and his supervisor had fired him for it. Your father, he's okay? Yes, because of you. Her voice softened with genuine emotion. The doctors said if you'd arrived even 5 minutes later, Mr. Ambrose, I'd like to meet with you. Would you be available tomorrow at 10? Our corporate headquarters downtown. John thought about the eviction notice, about Eleanor, about the fact that he had nothing left to lose. I'll be there. The phone slipped from John's trembling hand, clattering against the table. He stared at it, his breath coming in shallow gasps, unable to process what had just happened. The man he'd saved wasn't just anyone. He was Clinton Williams, and tomorrow John would walk into the building he used to deliver to, not through the loading dock this time, but through the front doors. Everything had just changed. Kindness is never wasted, even when it feels like it's costing you everything. Have you ever wondered if doing the right thing was worth it? Stay with us. This story is just getting started. Williams Logistics corporate headquarters occupied 3 floors of the tallest building in downtown Cincinnati. John had delivered packages to this building 100 times, but he'd never been past the loading dock. Now, a receptionist escorted him to the top floor. Polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of place where people wore suits that cost more than John's monthly rent. He felt painfully out of place in his worn jeans and jacket. Mr. Ambrose, the voice came from behind him. John turned. Sarah Williams was 27, tall and poised, with long, straight blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see right through him. But there was something else there, too, a carefully controlled sadness that John recognized because he wore it himself. Thank you for coming. She gestured to her office. Please. The office was enormous. A mahogany desk, leather chairs, a view of the entire city. Sarah sat across from him, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. My father wanted to thank you personally, but his doctors have restricted visitors for another week, so I'm here on his behalf. I'm just glad he's okay, John said honestly. I didn't know who he was. I just saw someone who needed help. Sarah studied him for a long moment. You were fired. Your supervisor documented that you abandoned your route. John's jaw tightened. Yes. Why did you stop? The question hung in the air. John could give her the easy answer, the one about being a good person, about doing the right thing. But what came out was the truth.
6 years ago, I watched my wife die, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. His voice was quiet, raw. She had a brain tumor, found it during a pregnancy checkup. The doctors gave us options: aggressive treatment that might harm the baby, or delay treatment and hope. She refused to risk our daughter's life. Sarah's expression shifted, something cracking beneath the professional mask. Eleanor was born healthy, perfect, and for 12 months we were a family, even as Anna got sicker, even as the medical bills buried us, even as I watched the woman I loved fade away. John's hands clenched. She died on a Tuesday morning. Eleanor was napping in the next room, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't save her. He looked up, meeting Sarah's eyes. But I could save your father, even if it cost me everything, even if it meant my daughter and I would be homeless. I couldn't just drive past someone dying. I couldn't live with myself. Sarah's composure broke. Her eyes glistened. I lost my mother 8 years ago. My father is all I have left. You gave him back to me. For a moment they just sat there, two strangers bonded by grief. Then Sarah straightened, pulling a folder from her desk drawer. I reviewed your employment file. 4 years with Williams Logistics, perfect safety record. Only 3 late deliveries, all documented with legitimate reasons. She paused. You were being paid $1,850 a month. John nodded. It had never been enough, but it was all he had.
Sarah's expression hardened. Mr. Ambrose, John, that's not what you should have been paid. I don't understand. According to corporate payroll records, your position was allocated $4,200 monthly, plus full benefits, healthcare, dental, vision. Sarah's voice was tight with anger. You were being paid less than half your actual salary. John's mind went blank. What? I've been so focused on expansion and acquisitions that I failed to audit the delivery subsidiary properly. I thought ensuring fair wages was enough. I signed off on the budgets. I assumed my employees were receiving what they deserved. Sarah's hands clenched. I was wrong. Where did the money go? Your supervisor, Dale Kruger, and his entire management team were systematically stealing from delivery drivers. They'd submit the full payroll amounts to corporate, pocket the difference, and pay you barely enough to survive. Sarah's eyes blazed, while treating you like dirt. John felt dizzy. 4 years. 4 years of struggling, of choosing between rent and food, of watching Eleanor wear shoes that were too small because he couldn't afford new ones. I've been indifferent, Sarah said, her voice thick with regret. I thought being a good CEO meant maximizing profits and expanding reach. I forgot that companies are made of people, people with families, people who sacrifice. She looked at John. Your sacrifice reminded me of that, so I started digging. What happens now?
Dale Kruger and his entire team were terminated yesterday morning. I'm personally reviewing every employee file in the delivery division. Those who were cheated will receive back pay, with interest, and I'm implementing quarterly audits to make sure this never happens again. John's throat tightened. Justice. After 4 years of suffering, justice. But that's not why I asked you here, Sarah said, sliding the folder across the desk. I saw your education history. Business management degree from Cincinnati State. Graduated with honors. John's hands trembled as he opened the folder. For all the good it's done, he said bitterly. Nobody wants to hire a guy who's been delivering packages for 6 years. I do. Sarah's voice was firm. I'm offering you a position as operations analyst. You'd work directly with me, analyzing logistics efficiency, identifying systemic issues, and, most importantly, making sure people like you are treated with the dignity they deserve. John stared at the contract. The numbers didn't make sense. $68,000 annually, full benefits. Healthcare for you and Eleanor, flexible hours so you can be there for your daughter, and a signing bonus to cover your back rent. John couldn't speak. You gave up everything to save a stranger. You have a degree you couldn't use because life was cruel. You have a character that can't be taught. Sarah's eyes were bright. Let me give you the chance you deserve.
John's hands shook as he picked up the pen. For the first time in 6 years, he cried in front of someone other than his daughter. "Thank you," he whispered. "No," Sarah said softly. "Thank you." John's first day at Williams Logistics felt surreal. He had his own desk, a computer, a security badge with his name and the title Operations Analyst. He wore a button-down shirt Eleanor had helped him pick out at the thrift store. She'd been so excited that morning, bouncing around the apartment they weren't being evicted from, talking about how her daddy had a fancy office job now. The work was challenging. Sarah had him reviewing delivery routes, efficiency reports, employee satisfaction surveys. But more than that, she had him talking to drivers, listening to their concerns, identifying problems. Problems like Dale Kruger. Within 2 weeks, John had uncovered 3 other managers siphoning money. Sarah fired them all. Within a month, driver retention improved by 30%. Within 3 months, John had proposed a new scheduling system that increased efficiency without sacrificing employee well-being. Sarah implemented it company-wide. But something else was happening too, something neither of them expected. Late nights at the office turned into conversations. Professional discussions about logistics became talks about life, about loss, about the walls they'd both built to survive.
One evening, Sarah mentioned her ex-fiancé. 5 years together, she said, staring at her coffee. I thought I knew him. 3 days before our wedding, I found out he'd been cheating. The other woman was pregnant. I'm sorry, John said. I canceled everything, lost the deposits, lost my faith in people. She looked at him. Until you. You reminded me that good people still exist. Anna made me promise I'd find love again, John admitted. I thought I never would. It felt like betrayal. It's not betrayal to heal, Sarah said softly. It's honoring what you had by believing you deserve happiness. Neither of them realized it was happening until it had. The walls crumbled slowly, one conversation at a time. The company holiday party was when Eleanor met Sarah officially. The 7-year-old marched up to the CEO with the confidence only children possess. You're really pretty, and Daddy smiles more now. Are you his friend? Sarah knelt down. I'd like to be. Can you be my friend too? Sarah's eyes glistened. I'd love that. Clinton attended the party, fully recovered. He found John by the punch bowl. Young man, Clinton's handshake was firm. You didn't just save my life, you saved my daughter too. Sarah? She'd forgotten to trust, to feel. You reminded her what goodness looks like. You gave me time to watch my daughter find happiness again. That's worth more than everything I've built.
2 years later, John stood in Clinton's garden on a spring evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Eleanor danced through the flower beds, her curly ginger hair catching the light. She was 9 now, taller, more confident. She had friends. She was thriving in her new school. She was happy. Sarah appeared beside John, watching Eleanor twirl through the flowers. She's gotten so big, Sarah said softly. She has, John replied, his heart pounding. Sarah, can we talk for a moment? Of course. John took her hand and led her to a quieter corner of the garden, where roses climbed a white trellis. His palms were sweating. He'd rehearsed this 100 times, but now his mind was blank. 2 years ago, John began, his voice unsteady. I was a broken man, racing against time on a motorcycle, convinced I'd lost everything worth having. Then I met you, and you gave me more than a job, Sarah. You gave me back my dignity, my hope, my belief that good things could still happen. Sarah's eyes widened, her breath catching. You've become my best friend, the person I want to share everything with, the good days and the hard ones. You've loved Eleanor like she's your own. And somewhere along the way, I fell completely, impossibly in love with you. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "I asked your father's blessing last week," John said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah Williams, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she looked at the simple, beautiful ring. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, John. 1,000 times yes." John slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then stood and pulled her into his arms. She kissed him, laughing and crying at the same time. "Daddy!" Eleanor's shriek of excitement made them both turn. The 9-year-old came running, her eyes wide as saucers. Is Sarah going to be—" "If that's okay with you," John said, kneeling to Eleanor's level. Eleanor threw her arms around both of them. "I've been wishing for this! Sarah, you're going to be my real mom now!" Sarah's tears fell faster. "If you'll have me, sweetheart." "Yes, yes, yes!" Clinton watched from the porch, Margaret's photo in his weathered hands, his face radiant with joy. He raised the photo slightly, as if showing Margaret this beautiful moment. John looked up and caught Clinton's eye. The older man nodded, his smile wide, his eyes bright with unshed tears. He had given his blessing gladly, telling John that he couldn't imagine a better man for his daughter.
Eleanor danced around them, singing about having a mom again. Sarah knelt down and held her tight. "I'm so lucky," she whispered to the little girl. "I get to marry your amazing daddy, and I get you too. My 2 favorite people in the whole world." John watched them, his heart so full it ached. They weren't fixed. Grief doesn't work that way. But they'd found something rare. 2 broken people who could hold each other's pieces carefully, learning to build something beautiful together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, John stood with his arm around Sarah, watching Eleanor chase fireflies through the garden. Sometimes the right choice costs everything. And sometimes, in ways you can't predict, it gives you everything you never knew you needed. A second chance at love, a mother for his daughter, a family built not from blood, but from sacrifice, compassion, and the courage to open wounded hearts again. John had saved a dying stranger on a cold November morning, but in the end, that stranger's family had saved him right back. Friends, if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if it reminded you of the power we all have to change someone's life with a simple act of kindness, please don't just watch and walk away. Hit that subscribe button and join our Soul Lift Stories family for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that kindness is never wasted, because sometimes the person you save might just save you back.